In this video, I'm taking you through the full process of painting Daisy Daydream, from the first tonal underpainting right through to the final touches, and I'll show you exactly how I build that depth step by step. Begin, as always, with a tonal wash of raw umber applied with a sponge. This helps me establish my lights and darks before any colour goes down. Once that goes down, I begin deepening the shadows, and then I use a typist eraser to lift the lighter areas, pulling back to the white of the canvas. This reductive stage is about seeing the structure, where the light falls and where it disappears. I keep everything transparent, there's no heavy paint here yet, and you'll notice me blotting with a paper towel to soften edges and create that soft bokeh effect in the background. For this stage, I'm using the smoosher brushes from Rosemary & Co. These are lovely, soft brushes that let me build value without any visible brush marks, and I'll link those in the description box below. As I move through the underpainting process, you'll notice now that the paint is going on just a little bit thicker and a little bit darker as I begin to build up those final values. Towards the end of your underpainting, it really is just about making sure you've got enough lighter lights and darker darks. Once the underpainting is fully dry, I start applying colour. I'm using that tonal map as my guide. I place the lighter greens where I originally lifted paint, and I work darker greens around them to keep that blurred background feel. For the daisies, I begin with the shadow tones first, a dark grey-green mix, and then add opaque white highlights on top. You always want to do your shadows first and then add the highlights, the lighter lights on the top. To one of my favourite parts, I'm using my finger now to begin adding some little circles to create that lovely bokeh effect. The background is still wet, and then of course I finish everything with a mop to really make sure everything goes nice and blurry. When I move on to the face, I start with the darkest areas such as the eyes and the brows. I typically mix 4 skin values from a dark value 4 through to the lightest value 1, keeping things as simple as possible at first. I work through these values gradually, allowing the form to emerge from the shadow into the light. And this is where the real magic happens, in that transition between value 2 and 1, where the sunlight filters through the hat. For the lips, I mix the base skin tone first and then tint it with red for a much more natural colour. For the hat, I've mixed a warm peach tone, leaving my light areas unpainted for now. On the shadow side, I grey the same mixture down with a little bit of ultramarine blue, which is the complement to the peach. This keeps the colour harmony lovely and consistent throughout the painting. And here you can see the extra bit of ultramarine blue creating a beautiful grey for the shadow side. The hair is simply raw umber with a touch of ultramarine blue. I paint the dark masses in first, and then I begin to pick out some highlights using some warmer colours such as burnt sienna and touches of cadmium orange. Even the white blouse follows the same principle. Begin dark and then layer the lighter opaque paint over the top. My highlight is a mix of titanium white with just a touch of yellow ochre to keep the warmth of the sunlight. I like to stay quite tight on the facial features, but when it comes to clothing, I really like to loosen up, letting a few brush marks show through, and this gives a little bit of energy and vibrancy to your painting. I like to freeze my mixed colours between sessions, so now I'm in the final stage of painting and everything has dried. When I'm in this refining layer, I like to make subtle adjustments, a little more green in the reflected light and stronger cast shadows and warmer mid-tones. Here on the cheek, for example, you can see that little touch of green that has been added to my original skin tone. Those initial 4 values do all the heavy lifting. I'm simply pushing and pulling temperature and saturation until the light feels right. Here you'll see white with touches of yellow ochre added over the chest and neck for that dappled sunlight effect that ties the portrait together. Most of the hard work really happens in the underpainting and the first colour layer. At this point in my second colour layer, I'm really refining edges, deepening glazes and enjoying the whole process, adding lashes, brows and tiny sparkles in the eye. Moving on to the hat, I begin to add some finer details, starting first with some of the darks. The last stage is all about texture. I apply a thicker impasto paint to the sunlit side of the hat, always working from those thinner layers to your thicker final highlights. I add finer hair strands using a liner brush. Popping on those super bright highlights using cadmium orange. I'm using pure white now to highlight the main daisy. Adding on some final highlights to the blouse. And finally popping on lashes and a little bit of shine to the lips. And that's the finished painting that I've called Daisy Daydream. If you'd like to explore this classical underpainting method in full, do be sure to check out the MazArt Academy, where you'll find over 500 hours of real-time tutorials. I'll link the Academy in the description box below. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next painting.